Hello, and welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today I got the Mustang pulled into the garage, and I'm going to try to wire some headlights onto it and some taillights possibly. So this car doesn't have any lights because I gutted everything out of this car when I did the roll cage, and it has an LS motor, so it's just not not really factory anymore. So I did do a bunch of wiring on this car when I did the roll cage. We put in a custom dash, and I put all the custom gauges in there, and I have a bunch of switches to control everything, and then my ECU is kind of mounted on the dash over there with a couple fuse panels. I have a couple fuse panels under the dash, and yeah, so I wired this car kind of from scratch. It's kind of how I wanted to do it, and this is kind of how I want to do the headlights as well. I want to have everything kind of on its separate circuit, on a separate switch, and all that. So I did actually have to go get a headlight pigtail. So I have 9004 headlight bulbs in this thing, and they require 9004 headlight plug, and I only had one on the harness for some reason. I could not find the other headlight plug. So this is the factory plug that just plugs into the headlights, and yeah, so I just have to wire this, but like I said, I can only find one of the plugs, and I went to O'Reilly's and they have a package, and it comes with two of them. So I'm going to use the new plugs and then use this one as a spare. And then for the taillights, I have a bunch of like these regular sockets here. These are actually LED taillight bulbs that were in this thing. They're kind of ghetto looking, but they are bright. So I may use those and then try to wire brake lights into them as well. We'll do brakes and taillights, but the thing that sucks about the Mustang is if we look back here, there is a white for reverse, and then next to it there's yellow for the blinkers, and then there is a red spot over here, and then there's a red spot on the bottom, I think. But I can only get at the red one on this side, so I'll have a light on the far outside of the tail. And I wanted to get another one, like maybe on the bottom here for like brake lights. So I'll have a tail on the outside and then a brake light on the closer to the inside here. But if we look on the back of the taillight thing here, there's no spot to plug in down on the lower portion of this light. So I don't even think those operated before. I'm not 100% sure. So I'll have to figure the taillights out next, but you know, I'm just going to start with doing the headlights. Those are nice and easy, and the way that these pigtails are set up, it should be fairly straightforward. I'm just going to be running the black wire off of this thing. So there's 3 wires, one for low beam and one for high beam. I'm only going to wire the low beams because I don't really plan on driving this car a whole lot, but I do want to have headlights that are functional. So I'm going to take the black wire off of the pigtail, and I'm just going to run it right to this bolt, or this screw. I'm going to scrape off the metal on this guy, just like I did on this side. I have a couple grounds going to this. I have my fans grounded to this screw, and then I have the corner light and the headlight also grounded to this as well. So next, after that, I'm going to have to take the center wire. So on this plug, it's red, and then on this plug, it is yellow. So I'm going to take the yellow wire, which is the center, and that is the low beam, I believe. So I'm going to take both middle wires off of each pigtail, and I'm going to wire them together. So I'm going to run a wire from this side across the radiator, tie it into this one, so they're both tied together, and then run one single wire right here, and I'm going to run that into the cab. So, and then once it's into the cab, I'll have a source, or like a load, for the switch, so I can plug that into the load. And then the supply wire is going to be coming from my fuse panel, so it will be a fuse circuit, and off of the fuse panel I will have 12 volts coming off of that guy fused into the supply portion of the switch, and then you just have to ground the center of it for the light to work. I think that's how they work. That's been a minute since I fucked with these switches, but yeah, so that'll be fairly straightforward. But I'm going to have the one wire coming in for the headlights, and then I'm going to have one wire coming from the back for the tails as well, and I'm going to run both of those wires together to the load, so when I flick the switch on, it'll turn on the headlights and the taillights. And then once all that is done, I will try to integrate brake lights. I'm not too familiar on the circuit of brake light stuff, but I know a brake switch is fairly simple. It's got an in and an out. just like a push button start does, you feed it in and then you feed it out, so we can even just control a ground circuit off of the brake switch. So that's kind of what I did plan on doing, is off the brake switch, I will run a wire straight to the chassis ground, and then the other end of the brake switch, I'll run it back to the tails and run it to the bulb ground side. So when I hit the brake, it'll complete the ground circuit, and then we'll activate the bulb.
Please stop!
Look at this fucking flamer.
What's up, bitch? What's that?
I don't know.
Alternator?
Spinny choo-choo boy.
What? This thing is like a day old and it gets burnt like within 5 seconds of room on it.
I fixed the heater.
You guys feel the warmth?
Oh yeah. I hot wired it. So I have a hot wire coming in and it's bypassing the photo sensor, so if this thing runs out of fuel, it'll burn my garage down.
Y100 Festival Foods present Walker Hayes Grill on a Tour. Happy Thursday, Green Bay Distillery. Get your tickets at WNCY.com.
What are you doing?
You're right. Tonight, please let me stay right there. A little bit longer. I can be the stars. We are.
Real furniture going out of business.
Alright guys, so we had to go to Walmart. I got a couple bulbs for the taillights, but I got the headlights all figured out now. And I ended up wiring corner lights as well, just because I had some fucking sockets and bulbs sitting here. So I just tied in the power wire with the power wire for the low beam of the headlight. And I ran that wire across here, and then I have the one single wire going in like I was talking about earlier. And I grounded the corner light and the headlight bulb separately, but on the same ground. So they're just tied into this ground right here. Same on the other side. Ran the power wire in, and I just have it hooked up to direct battery right now. I still have to wire the switch and stuff, but just wanted to make sure that the lights and everything still work. And as you guys can see, we do have headlights now on the car. And now I'm going to be doing the taillights, so I'm just going to wire the taillights along with this to the same switch. So I'm going to get to getting the sockets on, and then we're going to run grounds in the back separately, and then run the same power wire up to this power wire. So both the taillights and the headlights will be on the same wire, and then we can run that to the load on the switch. It'll be all good. Right, T-Bag, did you comprehend all that?
Yeah, what about the brake? When you push the brake light.
Yeah, that's going to be a different bulb. So like,
comprehend.
The fucking taillights have like a really bad, it's like, it only has a red slot on one. So I'm going to have the taillights be on the red. So like, the taillights are going to be over here, and then the brake lights are actually going to be the yellows, because it only has 3 slots for bulbs. It only has a slot here, a slot here, and a slot here. It doesn't have anything on the lower. So I'm going to use a red bulb in this yellow portion here, and then I'm probably just going to like red paint over the yellow portion, or I'll tint the taillights or something so it'll, you know, show up red. And that'll just be for the time being, so I have some sort of brake light. Also, I did plan on, I got a couple extra bulbs and sockets because I actually plan on wiring the trans brake to the reverse lights. I know a lot of hard asses out there, fucking drag racers, grudge racers, street racers. Whenever you see them bump in, they always got the reverse lights locked into the trans brake. And I don't know if it's just like a cool thing to do or something, but I think it looks kind of cool. So I might wire the trans brake into the reverse lights. So I have another separate bulb for all that as well. So we are going to be wiring the brake lights, or the tail lights first. So the tails are going to be just like a normal bulb, and they're going to be on the far outside. So I picked up a bulb. I got a couple bulbs and sockets right here. So I think I'm going to do the tail lights with the circular style bulb. These are all the same. They plug into every slot on the taillights, but the bulb is different on 2 of the sockets. So I got these bulbs right here. So these are going to be the actual tails, and I'll wire those in. There we go. So we'll just run this ground wire right here to right here or something. So it's got a ground, and then this power wire will run all the way up to the front of the car where I have the power wire for the headlights coming in, which is right here. And then we'll tie this wire in with the wire coming from the taillights to a switch. Like, hopefully this makes sense. It does to me. So we're gonna run a wire from this power on this taillight and this power on this taillight over here, and run a wire across, ground them both separately, and then run the wire up. And that'll give me a tail light, and then the brake lights will be a totally separate deal. Alrighty guys, so I did end up getting the headlights and tail lights all wired up, and I'm going to give you a quick overview again of the wiring. It's very simple, basic stuff here. Like I said, we got grounds coming off of the headlight here, ground right to the chassis, ground right from the corner light bulb right to the chassis, and then same thing on this side, grounded separately, and then ran just the power wire into the cab. So the power wire is going into the cabin. I do actually, this reminds me, I still have to like zip tie this somewhere. So I have to zip tie this like out of the way somewhere. I'll probably just zip tie it like to one of these like empty bolt holes right here, or like against the strut tower right here, so this wire doesn't end up hitting the manifold for any reason. So I got to do that yet, but that power wire comes into the car, and it tees into the tail lights. So right down here you can probably see a splice connection. Maybe you can see it. So I spliced in the taillights and headlights together, ran one wire up, and that one wire goes into the load of my switch. So this is the new switch right here. And then I supplied the power off of my fuse panel, which is up here. This is the fuse panel. I just like kind of rigged up a fuse panel for this thing, and it works really great. The wiring under the dash is kind of a clusterfuck because it's just like, you know, wires going to everything. But I do know where everything goes, and I wired it to kind of my taste and my liking. And you can't see any wiring, so it doesn't really affect me in any way. I can't stand when there's wires hanging down everywhere. But the wiring is all set up. I just have to zip tie some of this stuff back up, like the trans brake, relay, and all that. I still have to get like a bump box and 2 buttons for a steering wheel at some point, because I want to integrate a bump box and trans brake into the steering wheel so I can wire all that in, because I think that'd be really cool to have so I can bump in at the racetrack. But anyways, back to the headlights and taillights here. So we have a wire. I did the same thing on the taillights. So like back here we have taillight running into, you know, a splice right here, and then the single wire goes up and tees in. So when I flick the thing on, when I flick the switch, my fucking garage is flooding right now. Look at this shit. Fucking swimming pool. It is freaking pouring rain outside right now. It was supposed to snow, and then it turned all into rain, and then it's going to go back to ice, and then we're going to get more snow in the morning. So like, yeah. I'm about done with winter, guys. I'm kind of sick of it. But it just seems like this winter's really been dragging. Like, I don't know. Normally, it's the same amount of time every winter, but this winter's just been, I don't know. Like, we haven't had like a solid week where it was nice out. I don't know. I'm fucking complaining. I've been complaining a lot because I've been stressed out about the whole dyno getting home and dealing with all that, which I still haven't dealt with. It's still not figured out yet, and I still don't have a true answer, and lack of communication, and there's a whole bunch of stuff with that. But anyways, so we ran the power wire off the fuse box, and then we have a ground that goes right to the sheet metal dash here. So we grounded to that, and when I flick the switch on, we got a light that lights up, which is pretty neat. And then we can come up to the front of the car, and we have a working corner light. It's a LED, so it kind of is out of place, but whatever. It's got a working corner light, and it has the low beams wired in So all the front end works, and then when we come around to the back, we have operational taillights as well. So there we are, fucking taillight here. That's legal. That's legal to me. That's legal to the track. And the reason I'm doing this is because the track actually requires, if it's dark out, they require a working taillight and a working headlight to race. So I needed to do this anyways because I do plan on racing under the lights, obviously, at the racetrack. So needed to wire in some headlights and taillights. So I'm not going to bother with blinkers because, I don't know, the car's never had fucking blinkers. And I've never had really a concern to fucking want to do blinkers. So I'm just going to wire brake lights next, which I'll probably do tomorrow. I'm probably going to head in for the night. But I'm probably going to do brake lights as well. And like I said, how I'm going to do that is I have another bulb that's going to be sitting in here. And I'm going to be running the power wire directly to probably the fuse panel. So it's going to have direct battery power off the fuse box all the time to the bulbs. And whenever because like normally, like when your car has, when it's sitting there, even with the key out of it, if you hit the brakes, usually the brake lights will come on even if there's no key in it or whatever, because one side of the bulb is going to have power all the time. And then the ground on the brake switch, which is under the steering column, I'm going to run a ground to the chassis and then run a wire off the other end of the brake switch to the grounds on those bulbs, so they will complete the circuit when I hit the brake pedal, and that way I'll have brakes all the time, or brake lights all the time, not only when like the headlights are wired on. You know what I mean? Like I was thinking like I could wire it with that switch, but then I'm like, you know what, then the brake lights are only going to work if the headlights are on, and I'm not going to be cruising around with the lights on all the time. So that's how I'm wiring that. Some other things with the car that, I mean, this car doesn't really get a lot of attention on the channel, which I don't fucking get. All you guys are into Honda stuff, and I understand that, like, you guys miss the Honda content, but, like, I love my Mustang, and this car has taught me a lot, and it has, like, I've learned a lot of stuff with this stuff, and I've showed you guys a lot of the process of it, and this is the fastest car on the channel, which I feel like should get more recognition, but it doesn't. But anyways, I'm going to do what I want to do here, and I'm going to work on the Mustang a little bit and get this thing really dialed in so we can crack off an 8-second pass this year. I'm hoping for it. That's my goal. It's a kind of lofty one, but I'm going to try to do it. I still want to do a catch can on this thing of some sort. I actually just need to run like a breather off the oil cap here and then drill the other valve cover for like a 10 AN and then run 2 bungs off the valve cover. I think that'll be perfectly fine. That should be enough crankcase ventilation for this thing because it doesn't even have an issue as is until like 18 pounds of boost, then it starts to puke a little bit. Nothing crazy. I did do an oil change on this thing yesterday, and it's been having really good oil pressure lately. It had low oil pressure over the last race day, but ever since I changed the oil again and kind of just, you know, doing maintenance and stuff on it, like it's got 50 pounds of oil pressure at idle now. So, and like the whole time I was beating out on the lake with it, I was beating on it, and the lowest it got was like 25, which is fucking plenty acceptable to me. You know, it's just a clap. This fucking motor had 440,000 miles on it when I put it in here. All I did was take it apart, put it back together, gap the rings, and put a cam and stuff in it. So, you know, the bearings are a little old, and they're probably got real big clearances, which is good because we can swing this thing like 7,500 RPM or so. Hopefully with the larger clearances and stuff. But yeah, another thing, I mean, obviously I put a cage in this car over the, you know, fall. We put a roll cage in it. I'm not 100% like confident, you know, I mean, I'm confident in the roll cage that it'll like keep me safe and stuff, but like, you know, obviously I hope it passes tech and shit because like some of the welds are not the greatest. Some guy did point out in the last video in the comments saying that the welds on the cage look kind of scary, which I mean, I agree. Some of the spots on the pipe are really hard to get to. When, you know, I'm laying in the car with all the shit in there, it was really hard to get to some of the spots with my MIG welder, and I did this all myself. Obviously, I'm not a professional, but I mean, it is a 10-pointed cage, and it's to the point where, like, if this cage will outlive the body of the car, like, I guarantee it. Even the welds having, like, a little bit more slag on them than others, or, you know, just more shit on the cage, I feel like it's still way structurally sound than the rest of the unibody, because this car is a unibody, it's not a full frame, so like it's only welded to the floor, and I feel like if I rolled this fucking thing, the cage would bust through the floor. Like, I feel like that's how this would operate, honestly. I don't think any of the welds that I did are going to break. Like I said, I think the main weakness, if anything were to go wrong, or if it didn't hold up, I feel like the weak point would be the floor. Because, you know, you can only weld like a 6x6 plate, you know, and I just feel like it would punch right fucking through. I don't know. I don't know cages. I just bought this. It's like a, you know, pre-cut thing, and I welded it in, did what I had to do kind of thing. And it fucking works. It definitely stiffened the car way up. Other things I want to do to the car is I want to get a tranny cooler and a different radiator for it. So this is just like a factory F-body radiator, which works good. Definitely works better than the factory Mustang one, but I want to get an all aluminum, like big fat fucker, like 3 or 4 core, and a like dual core tranny cooler as well. So we can do big fat aluminum radiator with the big fat tranny cooler, and then run like, you know, proper line instead of rubber hose for the tranny, and do all that kind of stuff. I want to do that in the future. I might actually order a tranny cooler and stuff tonight or tomorrow maybe, so we can get that stuff going, because the car has overheating issues if the temperature is above like 60 or 70 degrees outside temp. So I think a bigger radiator will alleviate that issue. But yeah, that's gonna be it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna try to get making more videos here and there. Try to do some more stuff with this thing or the Honda, or whenever I get my dyno, you know, we'll make videos on doing that stuff. But hopefully you enjoyed this one, guys, and we will see you in the next one. Have a great day.